It's time to step away from Alteryx for just a second and talk about Snowflake, which is one of my favorite platforms, especially when it comes to the world of cloud, and especially when it comes to storing data and querying data and all of the things around management of data. It is awesome. And we're going to talk about some of the things that make it awesome today and some of the things that you need to be aware of if you do want to try it out. And yeah, it's a good one. I'm excited to be here talking about it. Yeah, my name's Trayson. This is Cloud Punch, the analytics. I say analytics blog, but really we're talking about more about platforms than specific analysis. Analytics platform blog focused on attacking everyday problems in the cloud. Hey there. Man, it has been a busy week, but I am here ready to go. New haircut. Mullet's on its way. So things are good. My poor wife. I've been doing a lot of stuff around the Alteryx, the analytics cloud. Recently rebranded to something around AI. I don't know what it is. Recently rebranded, but I've been doing a lot of stuff over there. So tonight, what I want to do is walk us through Snowflake. I've talked about Snowflake a few times. I fanboy hard for it. But what I want to do is show you a video about, we're going to talk about Snowflake, high level, talk about Snowflake. There's lots of training and stuff, but I don't know. We need another one out there. But really the important part of this is I want to put this together, and then knowing very little about Databricks, I want to do the same sort of content that we've been doing for other stuff for Databricks next week. So like, what does it take to launch Databricks? What does it take to get in there? How long is it going to take me to understand just like how to use it as a user or as an admin? And then, I don't imagine it's going to be like super easy necessarily. Not that I just have time in this, so I get this, and this is pretty easy. But we're going to talk about a few things here. We're talking a little bit about infrastructure, how it works, how you need to think about it, and then probably not going to do any sample querying here, but just talking about Snowflake, why it's great, why I love it, and why I would suggest everyone, if you're looking at your cloud data warehouse or cloud data lake or whatever they're calling it now, Snowflake's a great option. So my background in this space, I've done a lot of SQL Server work. I've done some Oracle work, some DBA functions in all of that. I of course have had SQL servers on my machine, but I've never managed like a full enterprise SQL Server instance, but I have done DBA functions, like I said. So, I loved that world. One of my things that I always liked about Alteryx is that I could be really good at SQL, and it would make me better at Alteryx, or even if I was really good at Alteryx, it would make me better at SQL because they worked really well together. So when we move to something like this, the translation over from language, essentially from language, from usability, like how that works, it's almost exact. But there are new functions that that are available for the cloud, and because of how they work, they being Snowflake, how that works. There's new features. So it's a great platform. With that, we're just gonna get into it. But that's my background on it. That's why I like it and why I can talk to it. So here we go. This is Snowflake. This is the newer version of Snowflake. If you've been into in older versions of Snowflake, it used to look a little different than this. This is a SQL worksheet. You can do Python worksheets right in here as well, because you can do Python work in Snowpipe. I believe it's called Snowpipe. Snowpipe. Yep. That's like the ingestion layer, and it does other stuff too. So that's there. This is what it looks like. Again, writing queries here. Super simple. Like this is one where you might have seen this on a video that I did before, but we're creating a network policy, and then we're creating a database schema. We were, declaring things, just doing queries, and then, simple like this create table as select CTAS as they call it, super similar. You've seen this over another platform or other like SQL or whatever. So this is all very familiar to us. Note the big like change here is that sometimes it gets really finicky about casing on. Notice I named everything with all caps for the most part. Is because I have noticed. Oh, I didn't use this here. I did not do all caps here. Actually, I think that gave me some trouble when we were setting things up. If I recall, we were setting up our Snowflake connection in Alteryx Cloud, and I hadn't capitalized that, and it was giving me problems connecting to this database. So, if you get into this, just use all caps, and you're good to go. Or no caps. That also works. One of those. But if you get into like mixed casing, then that's when things get kind of weird. So, but yeah, again, super easy to use. We're going to talk about access control. So, within the Snowflake environment, there are a few layers to this access control. Roles are essentially how you allow for access to anything in there. Now, there's a hierarchy to roles that already exist, and there's a way to put new roles that you create into that same hierarchy. And then you can grant usage to things in the hierarchy. And then, of course, if you grant usage to, like, if I granted usage to a schema, to a role, that would allow them the same access on everything below. So that whole, like, cascading access based on how you set it up. So just as a note, roles can get kind of unwieldy. So be aware of that as you are building out your roles in your organization. So let's talk about that real quick here. Just a note here, if you do take the core cert, this is a pretty, this is a question, I think, like what is RBAC? You need to know what this means, role-based access controls. So this documentation is going to kind of give you an example of all of that. And this is where we talk about like the hierarchy of this stuff. So these are the objects. So you've got your organization, your account level, all these things roll up to account, all these things roll up to database, and then these things roll up to a schema. So again, if you're given access to like a schema, then you get all the stuff below. Access to a database, you get the stuff below. Roles here. This is how we grant those privileges. Type of roles. So account roles, those are grant privileges on the object to an account role. We'll talk about the hierarchy down here. Yep. So these are the org admin is like to say if I was an organization. Sorry, I'm going to define this, and we're going to go back up to that. Why that tripped me up on that reading that definition. So an org admin is like, let's say I am a giant organization and I have multiple Snowflake instances. Org allows me to like look over the whole of Snowflake. Then you've got different accounts below that. And then of course they go down below that. These are again, the defined out of the box roles. This is how you can, manage that now. And there's another, I don't know if it's in here. Yeah. So there's this is the privilege, the hierarchy. So account admin, and then sysadmin and security admin, they roll up in different ways. So if you want to give sysadmin to people that are, managing all the database stuff versus like security and user admin is like a completely different set of roles and privileges. That's how this works. Again, things that are on the core cert. So all of this, you're going to have to just get used to this, get used to seeing this. So, and then there is like the hierarchy of the roles. So if you can put roles within other roles essentially. So, if role 3 has privilege C, and then you put that role in role 2, and now you have privilege C and privilege B, and then it rolls up like this. To note, that doesn't mean that necessarily, like if a user has access to all 3 of these different roles, let's say, and they say, okay, I want to use role 3 in my query, the access for role 2 won't apply to the user. You have to define the role that you're doing during query time. So, and so here's this inheritance of the roles. So that's a high level overview of the roles. It gets pretty tricky. I'm actually just going back in my head, making sure I said everything there right too. I'm going to have to watch this video a few times. So that's roles. Now, beyond the roles, another great thing, actually, this is probably, maybe this is like a fairly common thing in the cloud space now, but this is one thing that early set apart Snowflake from other options, or like why you'd want to leave the on-premises environment. It's the architecture. So there's essentially 3 layers to this, which you're seeing here. There's the cloud services layer. So that's like what manages how like Snowflake works. That's the GUI, metadata manager, security, infrastructure manager, optimizer. So like this is like an authentication and access control. So this is the service layer that makes your thing work. Query processing. So these are your warehouses. We'll talk about warehouses in a little bit when we get into like billing and stuff like that. And then database storage. So note here that there's a separation of the processing and the compute in Snowflake. So this is the thing that very specifically early on set them apart from like any way that we had done this before. So it used to be like if you have a big machine, or you had a lot of storage, and you had to have a lot of compute, or if you had a little storage, then you had a little compute. And sometimes you need big compute on little storage, or you need little compute on big storage. So the separation of this and how Snowflake charges for this versus this makes this whole model awesome to work with. Now, again, I think this is fairly similar in Databricks too, but that's something to discover next week, or to talk better to next week. One of the things I do want to talk about with query processing. So like when we run a query, as a user, this is really cool. Actually, I'm going to show you this whole thing here real quick. Query history. So I've looked again at this before a few times. This is one of my favorite tools. This monitoring stuff. This is like one of my favorite tools within Snowflake. So what happens is that, and I actually, to be honest with you, I'm not sure which roles get access to this monitoring. I think I always remember seeing it, but I also always generally have account manager roles. So I don't know who has access to this, but the idea is that I can look at every query that comes through this. And this isn't like a super foreign concept. Like this works on, you can do this sort of thing on SQL Server too, or Oracle. Like there is a way to look at like query history, but what I like to do with it is that as I'm using things like Alteryx with it, or Tableau, or Sigma, or Power BI, if I'm getting errors on that side, I can come in, rather than like trying to chase down logs in whatever platform's connected to it, I can come in here and check my queries out. And then it'll show me specifically what it is. So especially as I'm trying to build out like dynamic querying in Alteryx or something like that, this really helps me like pin down what I'm seeing on the other side. Another thing that's really cool about this is that, so we talked about the warehousing, and again, that's the compute layer. And when we're talking to like pricing, what I'm about to say is going to be really important. So what happens is that if I run a query and if I run a query and then I run it again a second time, what it does is it stores the results of these queries for a certain amount of time. I think it's only like 24 hours, but the idea being, if the data behind the query, so every table it's referencing, doesn't change between queries, I don't incur extra compute costs on those preceding queries, which is great, especially like when I'm developing, or like I'm trying to figure out something in Alteryx or whatever, and I just want to, and I keep hitting it. again, anyone using, like if you're using Designer Desktop and you keep hitting it and you forget to like cache your stuff at the beginning, this function's really great to keep compute down. Now, the size of this warehouse and the size of these queries isn't enough probably to like really impact my costs, but across time, across X hundreds of users, thousands of users, whatever it looks like, this is going to be the way. This will save real dollars over time. So, so yes, this feature here is great. Concept. So that's, yes, the query processing here, and I'm just going to leave that at that. If you want to continue, I'll leave all these links in my video description so you can go and read them. Time travel. This is a really cool feature too. What it allows you to do is to store like copies of your database up to 90 days in the past. So if you have to, if you have an organization that's really into backups and, oh no, we made a change and we have to roll an entire system back, whatever, the data exists for you here for however many X days back, again, based on your accounts. And there's, of course, like that's not free when you're going all the way up to 90 days, and depending on your size and all that stuff. So there are limitations to this, especially depending on like your account type. I don't think this is the one. There are different, well, we'll talk about it in a second. There are different ways to manage this sort of thing, or whatever is available. There's also, just to note, there's also like a what's it called? I can't remember the term of it, but it keeps storage. Again, depending on your account type, it keeps storage of data for 7 days after you, beyond whatever your retention time is, keeps it for like another 7 days, but you have to go directly to Snowflake to get it. So, there are, beyond your failsafe, there's extra failsafe stuff here. And again, this all depends on the account you pick up. So, yeah, I'll leave documentation here. Warehouse. So we're going to talk specifically about warehouse sizes, and this was what's going to lead us into our cost questions about Snowflake. So this is how you are billed. So it's usage of a warehouse processing, and then it's rounded up to a minute. I'm sorry, I can't remember if it was rounded up or with a minimum of a minute. I have to go check myself on that. But the idea is that based on which one of these warehouse sizes, you're going to use X amount of credits per second, and then credits per second, credit per hour breakdown. So if you are doing giant work, you're up here, but I think most of the stuff I've ever done, is the biggest I've ever gotten into is like medium. So this shows you consumption. So again, here's the impact on credit usage and billing. So this kind of gives you that breakdown of like, so here's yours 60 seconds, boom. And then on the 61st second, it's the same price. And then, or again, it expands as you get to bigger stuff. But again, we'll let you look at that later. Okay. Overall costs. So ways that Snowflake charges. There's the warehouse compute, which is what we just talked about, 60-second minimum each. So it's 60-second minimum, not rounded up to the 60 seconds. So it is the 60-second minimum. That's one of the ways. Storage resources. So there's no cost for storage in ingress, but egress does charge, which is to say that as I'm pulling data out of my database, there is some charge associated with that, and it is based on your. This is actually a really cool tool if you do want to kind of price yourself out, kind of get an idea of what this is going to cost. The data transfer is based on your region. So, and I'm sorry, I think what I did just say was that there is no cost for that. I believe there is a cost, but it's not a lot. It's like $23 a terabyte. Let's see. Hold on a second. there's a lot more to this, and there is a lot more to this cost thing. Give me 1 second. Oh wait, here's flat rate per terabyte. Yep. So I'm sorry, there is a monthly cost. So, I mean, if you're working in like the massive amounts of data, like multiple terabytes, petabytes, whatever those, I don't know, expand out, then those costs will incur. But relative to like your compute costs, this is pretty low. Pricing guide. Resources. There's a lot of resources for Snowflake. So if you want to do a 30, this is super easy to do. And there's a lot of things associated with this. Bunch of labs if you want to do some hands-on stuff. So if you want to go beyond everything that we're talking about right now. And then what's the other thing that I wanted to talk about? Oh, this is the data for breakfast. So they have like a road show right now. I think it has to do with AI and Snowflake. I'm very excited to go to this. What's the other thing? Data products. Snowflake Marketplace. So this allows you to, this is a super neat function of Snowflake. Again, I'm not sure if this is in Databricks or GCP at this point. I said GCP. I meant Google BigQuery or any of these Azure products or whatever. I'm not sure. I think there's either, if this isn't there, it's already on the way. But the idea of this is that what's really cool about Snowflake is that we can do what's called a share. So if my data is in US East and your data is in US East and you say, hey, can I buy some of your data? And I say, yep, we make an agreement, and then I open it up and I share it with you. And so there are limits on what we share. We build specific views for that share, and then we send it out. So on the on the Snowflake Marketplace, there are all of these different tools that exist, different data sets that you can go in here and go pull them out. They have free stuff, they have paid stuff. So like, Experian. So like if you buy Experian data, that's a fairly common use case. So if you buy Experian, boom, it exists for you in here. I believe I can just, like, if I were to look here. Yeah. So you can buy your Experian data products here and then just open them up. And then the charges, if I recall, the charges for the movement of data goes back to the data owner. But I can't remember specifically how that works. So the things you have to think about whenever you do this, but it's a lot easier. So like currently, right? Like if you buy an Experian data set, they send it to you in a, like if you have some on-prem thing, they send it to you on a zip drive, and then you have to bring it in, load it, make sure that it's loaded correctly. And I mean, the process for ingesting that can be huge. And then by the time you're actually using it, who knows how like far behind the the actual data is and if it's usable. And then beyond that, an important note is that, like, let's say I did buy an Experian data set, and if it's the first time, then what I have to do is I have to do all the steps I just talked about, but then I also have to teach people how to use it. So there's this huge learning curve with something like Experian. That isn't to detract anybody from using it, but I was just saying, like, these are the realities of kind of getting into a data set like that. What Snowflake did is they launched a service called Native Apps, which essentially is the logic layer for this transfer of data. So if you are Experian or a partner of Experian, and you want to also sell like the logic. So like, let's say you're doing some with Experian, you're doing some data enhancement. What's the word I'm looking for? You're adding extra fields to the end of a data set based on my Experian data. So if you want to do something like that, we could essentially build the logic out for you in an app. We build the logic in an app, and then that app can also be shared. So again, either at a cost or given for free, like when you buy the data package, whatever that looks like. And that helps up your speed to value when you make a purchase of a platform or of a data set like Experian. I think that's all the stuff I really like about Snowflake. I hope I said everything correctly. I'm gonna have to go back and watch it and make sure I didn't mess any of that up. But yeah, Snowflake's great. Again, I do fanboy for it. Not as hard as Alteryx. I've just been in Alteryx for a long time, but they're different products. So storage, you can do compute here. Oh, just a fun thing about how they work together. If you're on the analytics cloud and you're doing Snowflake work in Designer Cloud, the way that product works is that if you're connected to Snowflake and the whole thing's happening on Snowflake, so let's say you're pulling from Snowflake, pushing from Snowflake, and then sections of that, like if you're doing some things, let's say you're doing things and then you're pushing it, you're pulling from Snowflake, pushing to a CSV or whatever. The majority of the querying actually gets built into, rather than using Designer Cloud's storage layer to do the SQL work on top of it, actually just rewrites SQL, or it rewrites Snowflake code, and then that code gets deployed to your instance. That was, I don't know if you guys remember this one. This was a create statement where we pulled from Analytics Cloud, ran a bunch of stuff, and then pushed back to Analytics Cloud, and then it just rewrote this. Now, is it the most efficient code? Probably not. But it is for a new user or someone who doesn't want to write any sort of query writing language, and they want to be doing something like Analytics Cloud. And it's not terribly inefficient. Like this is like a build. I think this is like a create statement, and I was pushing data into it. So it took 6 seconds, which if you're in this database world, that could seem like an eternity, or like, hey, what's going on? Because it should work a lot faster, but it's just because of like the way this code is written particularly. So this shouldn't be a deterrent. But what I guess I'm saying is that if you have those, that's why in my videos, Snowflake has been so much faster to run, because it's running that stuff on Snowflake. Yeah, I'm going to kill this video before I continue to put my foot in my mouth about stuff like this. Let's actually change. Let's look at network policy stuff instead. Thanks everyone for being here. Have a great night.